Welcome to the Zero Breach Zone, the ultimate podcast dedicated to safeguarding K-12 schools from cyber threats and beyond.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Phil, your co-host guiding you through the intersection of cybersecurity and education.
Each episode, Phil and I will dive into conversations that matter, breaking down the latest cybersecurity challenges that schools face.
And we're not doing it alone. We'll be bringing some experts in the field from the EdTech world and beyond for interviews, getting their take on the most pressing issues.
Plus, every episode will wrap up with a recurring segment, The Parting Tool, where we'll share a top tip or tool that you can start using immediately to stay ahead of breaches, phishing, and everything in between.
So, welcome to the show. We're thrilled to have you here with us. Let's not just listen, but let's take some action. Connect with us on LinkedIn and other socials and join the conversation. Together, we can build a strong community dedicated to protecting our schools. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the Zero Breach Zone. We're happy to have you here. I'm Phil Hintz, and this is my co-host.
I'm Andy Lombardo.
All right. And today, everybody, guess what? We have a very special guest today, a great friend of mine that I've known for many years. She is a national thought leader when it comes to cybersecurity and technology and integrating technology. From the great state of New Jersey, I remember she was part of the board over there for the state for the state COSIN organization, state COSIN chapter. Welcome everybody to Sandra Paul. Welcome, Sandra.
Thank you, and great to be here, and great to meet Andy for the first time. And it's always great to be in your company, Phil. I'm very honored.
Likewise here, I'm privileged to be in your presence.
I'm quite sure that I'm going to feel the same way after getting to know Andy for a while.
You've had an esteemed career. You and I got to know each other through Tech and Learning magazine, and some of the events that they put on. I always try to give out shout outs to Tech and Learning because they've been around forever, over 50 years now of providing good information for technology and learning. And they brought us together to do an event, and that's how we met. And we've seen each other several times after that. But I know we've presented together. We've been on a panel together.
Yes, we have.
I looked up to you. You've always had a good, strong focus of not only cybersecurity, which we'll get into here in a little bit here, but also just a good sense of organization and your leadership skills and how you bring your culture and your people around. Your vision of where you're going has always impressed me. Your demeanor, I think, is really what made that special magic happen. And so tell us a little bit about your career and how you got into being a CTO for a school district and what have you.
Yeah. Phil, you definitely caught me off guard with that. I'm very humbled that you look at me as some sort of model. Myself, I'm like, I just do what I do and people see it, and that's all. All I care about is getting it done. I remember the first time I had to do a self-evaluation, and I'm like, I don't know what to write. Because I kept saying, I just do what I do. But anyhow, how I got into it was I was a computer teacher and way back when, all right, Phil, way back when. And I landed up teaching in a computer lab that was just single PCs.
Okay.
I got fed up. So I started looking through Microsoft stuff and, all right, so I'm just about to age myself to tell you what I did so I started a server with Windows NT.
Ooh, all right.
Way back when. And I networked the computers in my classroom. And ever since I did that, I just started falling into the trap, or no, not the trap. I fell into the wire. When I know some of you have some IDFs and MBFs, looks like a bird's nest.
Yes.
Yeah, I started falling into that. And I've organized some closets, so because of that, I know what it takes to do it. But yeah, I fell into doing networking and stuff like that, and then moved right into cybersecurity because of how things have progressed over the years. So my career has been for approximately 33 years that I have been doing this. And when I was a teacher, I started realizing that I wanted to have more of an impact on students than just the 150. I was a high school teacher, just the 150 kids that I had on my roster. So because of that, I applied to become a school administrator as a director of tech. And a good portion of my career has been in that position as director of tech or CTO for school districts within the state of New Jersey. I've been in 5 different school districts, different demographics, urban, suburban, and from my smallest school district was 800 students. My largest school district was 7,800 kids. I've had different things that I've had to work with. I've had a staff of 2 people, including myself, to a staff of 8 people. So I've done the gamut of basically as being a CTO and technology director and over the years. So that's kind of like how my affiliation started. But one of the greatest things that I can recommend to anyone who's listening to this podcast, more than anything else, stay connected with other CTOs, other directors of tech. When I first started out, even up till I retired, I never really had a mentor or a person that I could actually reach out to sometimes to ask questions. Every once in a while, when I had to deal with different things, I would reach out to Diane Dorsch or I'd reach out to Cheryl Avishar. Diane used to be CTO in Green Bay, and then Cheryl used to be in Louisiana. But over the years, through tech and learning, actually, I got to meet quite a few directors of tech and CTOs, and it's taking snippets of what they have done in their different school districts and also having conversations, doing research. Brought me to the point where my last school district, I had 7,800 kids, over 1,200 employees. I had 10,000 Chromebooks. That did not include everything. And then started moving into the IoT, Internet of Things, where, security cameras, door access systems, environmental stuff, being in charge of all of those type of things. When I finally left, that's what I was primarily working in and writing. Through COSIN and Tech and Learning, I did a lot of stuff on writing curriculum, writing processes and procedures, but also contributing to school district policies, the disaster recovery, incident response, business continuity plans, those different things. And I also supervised, a lot of my career, I also supervised librarians. So I had the ability to look both at the infrastructure and the instructional process at the same time.
One of the things that really resonates with me about your on-ramp to technology, we talk a lot with our guests about Phil was a band director, I was an English teacher, how technologists in K-12 really have a fun assortment of backgrounds and how they got hooked into it. And it comes back a lot to teachers just adopting by necessity that there's a problem, and teachers are just such a focused group of people that are like, okay, I see a problem. It's not in my nature to just say, hey, there's a problem and let someone else handle it. And so really like wiring up an NT lab. I had a similar experience at a lab at my first school I taught at, where I bought some recycled computers from e-waste. So it was actually a neighboring school district. Their stuff had been recycled. And so I worked with him to get that to put it in my classroom, and then just all the work trying to get that to work, and because it'd been retired for a reason. I just love that. That's a part of K-12 technology character that I think not every industry gets to benefit from.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that. But one of the things I find interesting, and I always say this, is that the most creative people that exist in this world are teachers. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes on the fly, they have to come up with a resolution. That's one thing. And some people don't know how to pivot that quickly or know how to do that. That's one thing. The other thing that I find interesting is that because they're dealing with the learning process, I do find that they look at each individual student as a different learning capabilities, or not, I shouldn't say capabilities, learning style. They say there's no such things as learning style. I don't know, but I see it all the time. I saw it with my own kids. But one of the things I do find interesting is that how they are able to adapt whatever they have according to what's going on in the classroom at the time, according to the climate and the culture of the school district. It's always something that the teachers seem to be able to adapt or pivot when it comes to doing certain things, when it comes to education. And I just think teachers are amazing to me. I've seen them do some things that in my mind, I'm like, no, that could never happen. Yeah, it did. And it's just amazing to me.
Yeah. Well, I learned so much, and how you handle that, and hearing your different stories has inspired me at different times to be able to understand, gee, how would I have handled it? I see how Sandra handled it, and I'm like, would I have handled it that way? I don't know. Oh, I don't know if I have the character to be able to do that the way you have at times. And you're soft spoken at times, but when you need to speak out, I've heard you speak out. And it's that unique combination that I think has made your leadership so powerful, really. Knowing you and having talked with you at different times, I know you're passionate about cybersecurity in some ways. You kind of had to, your hand was kind of forced in that area recently. And this being the zero breach zone, we like to talk about breaches sometimes. Or how to prevent a breach. But and I know you did a lot of things to work to prevent a breach, but yet, as we know and we talk about all the time on this show, is that it happens. It's not if, it's when.
When.
And in your case, you had a when. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about that situation and the before and the during, and a little bit of what you've learned since then. But whatever you can share, because I know that some of it sometimes can't be shared in terms of maybe ongoing investigations or things that maybe CISA or FBI is doing. So give us paint us a picture of what that fateful day that happened.
It was funny because it happened on the Saturday before Mother's Day. And we were in the middle of state testing.
Whoa.
What else?
Great job.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And what was interesting was you get a notification saying you can't see the DNS, and you're like, wait a minute, what's going on? And my network administrator, she started looking at the network and she said something else is going on. So we both decided to go into the office. So we went to the office, and while we were there looking at our network and stuff, we started pulling all our partners in and all the equipment that we had, to started having a discussion about, can you take a look at this? Tell us what's going on and everything else. So we started looking at different things. And one of the things that I would like to emphasize also is that, because there's been recently a lot of discussion about ed tech vendors, and they reach out to people. Once you have a contract, you don't hear back from them, or somehow that's all they want is to be able to get to the big school districts. They don't want to talk to the small school districts. Just to let you know, okay, when you have a great vendor partnership relationship, it is golden, especially when you're going through an incident like this. The partners I landed up having to really depend on to go through this entire process, I will sing their praises forever, because they were amazing in so many things they did. So with that in mind, and also with Dell being on our partner, and we used a program called Sophos. And with Sophos and everything else, we started realizing that we were basically dealing with a cyber incident. So one of the things we did was, when we started realizing the cyber incident, we started shutting things down, and we started shutting things down from the network. So we shut down the things for the local area network. And Phil, you brought up something that was interesting. You have to prepare for these things prior to it actually taking place. You can't just go happy-go-lucky and say, oh, it's not going to happen here. No, it's going to happen. And like you said, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And in preparation, and even for basically not just cybersecurity, but from making sure about redundancy and for business continuity, one of the things I've always said was, we can't afford to lose the internet. We were a Google school district, and we can't lose the internet. So because of that, I landed up in a situation where I had 2 pipes coming into the school district and for ISP. And with that, one of the things that's needed, we actually did a load balancing. So one pipe was basically our administration and staff, and while our other pipe was primarily students. So that kind of kept things very separated. And you know how important it is to separate that stuff. Yeah. Because when you have 7,800 kids, the biggest thing is somebody on that side thinks it's fun to try and get into your network compared to your staff, which is only 5 people, and you're saying to yourself, we can't monitor everything. Okay. Yeah. So with that in mind, we started realizing that our local area network was the where the problem lied. It didn't record. It wasn't through our Wi-Fi. So because of that, what we did was we shut down one of our pipes, our ISP pipe, and we disconnected from that completely. So the other side, we opened it up. So we landed up moving everybody from the administrator staff side and moved everybody over to the student side, because the access was done through that administrative side and not the student side. So we had 2 firewalls, okay?
Okay.
We had 2 different systems coming in. So we just had to we moved everybody over.
Yeah.
So with that in mind and everything else, the other thing that happened was our SIS was on our server. And that was one thing that they were trying to get on, because the server was inside district. But we had a backup, which was in the cloud.
Okay.
So what we had to do was we had to activate the cloud services. Mm-hmm. So what we did, we started getting the cloud services activated as for the FIS system. And we started working live with the cloud services while shutting down the LAN inside the entire district. So the entire district was shut down. But so notice I didn't talk about telephones.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where your partners come in. So that was one of the things that happened, was that we had to figure out a way how could we get the telephones back up and running, because our telephone was on-prem. It was not cloud-based.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, we had to reach out to our partners. We landed up having a situation where they literally went and found something for us to use in their storage closet. And they warned us. They're like, listen, just to let you know, this thing is sitting in a storage closet. There's the possibility this thing ain't going to work, but here we go.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we were able to bring up back the phones. Okay, doing that. We actually ran our DNS on a actual PC. We had to bring up a PC, brought it back up and everything else. And basically what we started doing was moving everybody to the Wi-Fi system. So we landed up having to find resources for, it wasn't primarily administrative staff, but it was primarily the support staff that normally uses PCs. They don't really have Wi-Fi access or whatever it is. So we had to find resources to provide all of what they might have needed, which was of their laptops, the tablets, all those things we had to do for the school district. And then there was the question, are we going to have school? So let's rewind back to when the incident took place. So I am letting everyone know, if you have cyber insurance, the most important thing to do when you have an incident is to call the insurance company. Okay.
So is that the first thing you did, was call the insurance company, or did you call the FBI first, or did you call your state first?
No, I called the insurance company first.
First. Okay. Was that before or after you told the superintendent?
Before I called the superintendent.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
I called the insurance company. And the reason being was, if you do not call the insurance company and report it to them first, okay, there's a good chance you will not be able to get resources to help you overcome this type of thing.
Wow.
Okay? So, yeah, because they look at it basically that if you basically can take care of your own resources, why would they try and help you? Okay.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's not the insurance company telling me this, but I could see how the insurance company could think that way. So I called the insurance company first. And then after I called the insurance company, this was on the recommendation that I had for my CISO. So I had a CISO who was virtual, meaning that it's not somebody that was on my staff. It was somebody that I virtually, and it was a shared network through a company called NJ Edge. So the person actually worked with different school districts, and you paid for subscription services and stuff. So I reached out to her first. And when I reached out to her, it so happened she was actually traveling. I called her at the airport. And while with her, then I spoke to the insurance company. And then the other part too also is that once the insurance company came on board, it started rolling, everything started rolling. And then that's when I notified the superintendent, and then he notified the school board about what was going on. Yeah. The state of New Jersey, it's required that you have to report it to the State Department. There's an organization called NJ Kick, which is our cybersecurity state organization.
Task force,
So
yeah.
I called them, and Mike Garrity, he was there. So I reached out to him and let him know we had this incident and everything else. And actually, it was them that notified the FBI and everything else. And so with all of these people coming together, all right, we started working on the problem. So one of the things the insurance company does, they will guide you basically of how to deal with the incident. But the other thing that they also do is help you with resources to be able to do it. So they would, through a company that they are associated with, we were able to get boots on the ground on our campus for people to come in and actually help us get our LAN back up and running, all our PCs or get our server back up and running, checking everything to see what might have been compromised.
Yeah.
Okay. So because now you're in the port where you're trying to mitigate. In the beginning, you're trying to mitigate, then you're trying to restore, and then after you restore, you're trying to now bring back your entire system. And one of the things you have to be very careful about is when you're bringing back your system, you don't want to bring it back the same way.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. You want to bring it back improved.
Yeah.
And that's where
more resilient, yeah.
Yeah. And you want to be basically looking at certain things. The issue that one of the things that over the years we started realizing was you have to be very careful about when the MFA system, the multi-factor, because we had just implemented it for our staff members.
Good.
So our staff members were all authenticated already. So because we had just done that, that worked out where it wasn't it wasn't any of them that actually it happened. It actually happened, just to let you know, they got through our firewall through an old system that existed. And it was
old operating system or
it was an old piece of equipment.
Old piece of equipment, okay. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That basically should have been shut down.
Okay.
But it was up.
Probably had old code on it and what have you, right?
Right. And that's one of the things you have to be very careful about and that's why it's so important to do patching. It's so important to keep track of all of those things, because especially when you have equipment and some of us, especially in education, we have this tendency, we hold on to equipment forever. We think that it's not ever going to die. It's not going to expire.
Well, we're trying to stretch the dollars too, right? I mean,
exactly.
Much mileage out of it as we can, right?
Yeah, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
Dollars being very scarce. Well, because that's one of the things you have to be very aware of. And because of those things, when we finally were able to bring in someone in and they started mitigating what was going on, they copied off stuff from the hard drives, from our server system. I even had a stopgap system.
Yeah.
But they were able to get it. They were able to still pull some data. They weren't able to pull everything. Okay. Just to let you know, my incident was nothing compared to what I've heard some school districts went through. But I can tell you this, because of colleagues, I was able to get a lot of help of walking through this process. And one of the things that helped me was I actually had a colleague who finally came over one day, and he and I brainstormed on a whiteboard, not electronically, on a whiteboard. And we wrote out everything because he had gone through one. Yeah. They went through his township, right? So the local town, and then came over to the school district. And that's how he got hit. And he was able to help me to write down every single thing, how to communicate, how to look at what your insurance company is going to cover, what we are going to need in order to try and mitigate the situation. So because of writing everything out and being able to work with everything as we went through, plus your vendor partners. I can't talk enough about vendor partners, about how much they really help you to try and go through this. With a small staff that I had, with only 5 people, and you're trying to get to as many devices as you can, having vendor partners is definitely worth it. And so we went through the process. So remember I just said we had state testing.
Yeah.
Right? So this is Sunday, so I had to wait for the superintendent to tell me whether or not he was going to decide whether or not we're going to have new state testing on Monday. So what we did, we held off for the Monday. All right, we had to file a report with the state saying we couldn't test or whatever. But believe it or not, we were able to test on Tuesday.
Wow.
Wow.
We weren't up completely. Don't get me wrong. We weren't up completely and everything else. It took us,
Couple sleepless nights there, right?
oh, yeah, not only sleepless nights. It was funny because and Phil knows about this. For a CTO, it is nerve-wracking for you to go through this.
Yeah.
Because all that goes through your mind is like, what did you miss?
Yeah.
How could you miss this?
Yeah.
Then you start questioning yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you're going through the process of trying to remediate everything, you started questioning every single decision that you've made previously and every decision that you're going to make in order to make the network better or to move forward.
Yeah.
It is definitely something you need. You're going to need colleagues to help you to get through it. Don't just take it for granted. And people like Phil and Diane and Cheryl Abishar and Alex and Joel Handler and all these people, if it was not, I would have gone crazy. I would say in a week, I maybe slept approximately 2 hours per night.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not really eating there.
Your mind was processing it all. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's rough. But back to the actual infrastructure and the things that you don't want to do. Because I had an incident response plan, I knew exactly who to call and also how to respond to each person more or less. Okay. And I brought in everybody, my entire team on Monday, I never called in the team over the weekend. I called in the team on Monday, right?
Yeah.
Because I wanted myself and my network person, our vendor partners, and the insurance company, plus the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and my business administrator.
Yeah.
All of us, we met several times during that weekend, and we talked about a few things. When Monday I brought in my team and brought them in, they understood exactly what was going on. Now, one of the things that's neat about it also is that I had teachers that were willing to help.
That's
I had
good.
teachers, I had security people, and besides the boots on the ground from the insurance company that was helping with the remediation, I literally had teachers and security personnel and people that were willing to help us to go through and touch every single PC that was in the district or touch anything that was connected to the network. And it was amazing how much help we got to get through the process. And I would say we finally were able to build back up after about 4 weeks.
Okay.
Almost. And we were back on track completely by that time.
That's a lot of time. That's a lot of hours. That's a lot of money and dollars that had to be spent to mitigate and go through it. I know you, and I don't know what you can share, but I remember you saying something to the fact that this wasn't the local hacker down the street that was part of this mix. And it wasn't a kid, a student trying to do a prank. You found out that it was something bigger than that. And I don't know if you can share any of that, but if you could, I know our listeners are curious on that. But
okay, so it wasn't the local person. You're right. It was an actual organization that exists that actually does this for a living, more or less. Yeah. And so they actually
international organization, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it was an international organization that did this.
Oh.
And the thing that became very clear, and that's the reason why the FBI became involved in it, was because it was an international organization, they had to actually investigate and see what organization did this, and not only the organization, what was the affiliation, what could be everything else that is associated with it.
Yeah.
Because of that investigation and everything else, there were certain things we could not do.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to let you know, one of the things that as a school district, we never paid the ransom.
Okay.
And I'm quite sure you guys know that some school districts do not pay. We never did. And that's where your insurance company comes in, because if you have to pay, it's the insurance company that's going to be paying it for you. So we never paid for it or anything like that. But yeah, and that's the reason why you have to, like in the state of New Jersey, you reported it to the state, and then the state got involved by reporting it to the federal government. And I can tell you this, even people at CISA reached out to me, people at the different organizations that the school because I brought the school district into these different organizations to see what was going on, because I wanted to stay on top of it. And I guess that's why I took it more on a personal level, thinking, how could I have missed this? How could I have, because I thought I had everything in order, more or less, putting certain things, barriers, certain things in place. But as you can tell, it kind of happened, and it did. But thank goodness we recovered. They recovered from it, and we were able to, like I said, we were able to do the state testing. We finished up state testing. We were actually able to finish the school year out, because by the end of June, we were able to definitely have graduation. We were able to, everybody was able to get not only diplomas, but report cards. All those things were able to be done by the end of the school year. So it worked out in the long run. Yeah.
That's amazing. So if there's, so imagine, so I'm just reeling a little bit, just thinking about all the things that are entailed. And so for listeners who maybe are just taking that on and thinking like, oh my gosh, if this happened to me, where would I start? What would your advice to them of things that they can do now to be prepared and to be in a better place if something does happen?
The first thing I would do is definitely have a incident report plan. And even the most important thing is because it gives you a roadmap that you can follow. Because sometimes, like I said, for me, I went to it immediately because I needed to know exactly what I needed to do. There are times that you're so busy trying to mitigate the issue, you lose track of what to do. So having the incident response plan in a framework and ensuring that you follow that guideline, that will help you to stay on track. That's one thing. The other thing that I would always recommend is include your staff, include people that may be in your tech committee into the discussion. One of the things that also helped me was because I actually had a tech committee of school board members, and I would monthly give my cyber report to them. So because I always gave them the cyber report, they knew that once I started talking about that we were going through the incident, they knew exactly what I was doing and what I was following and where I was going with everything.
Cool.
So because of that, by the time the superintendent and everything else, and we all came together with the business administrator and stuff, there was a knowledge base there that I did not have to go through. You understand? So because of that, it wasn't the person from the school board that had no knowledge of when I reported these things. These are 3 people that knew exactly that I reported every month to. So that was one thing. So that would be the first thing I would say, is always make sure about that. But also meet with your business administrator or your CFO or whoever it is that does your cyber insurance, because you're going to need that information. Who you call, all right, what you report to them, okay, and how they need to, basically you communicate with them and they communicate with you. You don't want to be a situation where your CFO or your business administrator, they will only communicate with that person. Because if that's the case, then you're trying to explain to your business administrator or CFO about some of the things that are going on technically, your insurance company may not understand. And that's one of the things that you have to be also aware of. There are people in the insurance company that have no clue about how to deal with some of the technical stuff. Right. So that's the reason why you have to, when it starts happening and everything else, they automatically transfer you to their technical team who is part of the cyber insurance. So those are the 2 main things that I would say. The insurance company is definitely one of the main things. And make sure you have an incident response plan. Make sure that is also up to date. Run tabletops. That's one of the things that's great. And run tabletops not only with your team, with your superintendent, your business administrator. Okay. Can
I ask you personally, had you run a tabletop prior to the incident?
I'd run a tabletop with my team.
It was with your team. Okay. All right.
Yes, with my team.
But not necessarily with the superintendent and other folks. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious because we talk about that all the time on this show here. And it's been a little too long since I've ran a tabletop in our district. I'll just say that. And that's number one on the radar right now, especially talking to you again and having this fresh in my sight here. But it's like we know it's best practice, but then actually making the time and taking the time to do it with all the other things that we have on our plates of CTOs. Because you did that, as soon as you brought your team in, they knew exactly where they needed to go and what they needed to step in with and what expertise they needed to bring to the table because of that.
Yeah, because say for instance, I had the one team member that did a lot of the physical security. So he just glommed onto that and he went and took care of that stuff. And those are the type of things that you work with and trying to get it done. And
did you have a communications person on staff at all, or who led the communications out with the district, if I could ask that, as far as when you knew it happened and the superintendent was made aware and the superintendent made the board aware? At what point did you make the communications aware to students, staff, your community?
The superintendent did that. Because that's the one thing I had. Part of one of our policies state that all communication has to go through the superintendent's office.
Yeah.
So because of our policy and everything else, our superintendent was the one that sent out the information.
The spokesperson. Okay.
That's right. And it's through that office, the superintendent's office, that information was shared.
Yeah.
And
I know from tabletops, that's key to have that already designated advance, because you're in the heat of the moment. You're the technical side of things. You're not in a place where you can compose a thoughtful letter that goes out to folks and all that stuff. That should not be your job.
No, and the insurance company will help you. The insurance company helped my superintendent of school of exactly what to say out.
Yeah. And, what you could say, what you couldn't say, right. And that, yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah.
I know a lot of times when you get a group of CTOs together in K-12, the conversation is going to come up of how do you get a seat at the table? And there are going to be districts where the CTO feels like they're involved in decision-making, involved with the board, involved with superintendents and leadership, and then districts who are not. And it sounds like you've really latched onto some ways to make sure that all of those groups are combined and informed, and really kudos to that.
Yeah, because one of the things one of the most important things about it is that we're at an age where education cannot function without the technology.
Yeah.
Okay?
100%.
We are too dependent on the data. I hate to say it, but it's true. If you want the data, because the data is associated with dollars, your technical person needs to be on your board, needs to be at that C-level table. Then that person needs to be there. Let me tell you why. A lot of times, I remember even before this incident, a lot of times it was because, is things compatible? Somebody comes up with this brilliant idea because they went to a conference and, can you put this on our network, or can you work this with it? You know it don't work that way. But with and then all of a sudden you're now putting duct tape, Band-Aids, and chewing gum trying to get the thing to work together, because interoperability, it's still an issue no matter where you go.
Right.
But the one thing that I do find that is also important is that for school districts to get the data that they need at their fingertips, that technical person needs to be at the table, because it's no longer just a discussion about compatibility or interoperability. The whole idea is to be able to get to the data. Who has access to the data? Why do they need access? We're talking about data governance, which is a part of the NIST framework. And I would recommend everybody to look at the NIST framework, or COSN has a framework which is associated with this NIST framework. Actually, I remember looking at it, and now it's very much more detailed, because it now includes a lot of cybersecurity stuff in it. And that's one of the things that I would say why it's important to try and be at the table. And I would also recommend, if you are not at that table, reach out to someone that you know that's in the table and invite them to a meeting.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
That's really good.
And listen, I'd like you to have a discussion with Phil Hintz in order to discuss basically the importance of the technology person being a part of this decision-making, just doing that type of thing. One of the things for me was I always believed that communicating to the superintendent, school board, the business administrator, but also the teachers and the students. I had tech teams, not tech teams, but I had tech committees that included my students.
Yep.
High school kids.
Strongly suggest that too. We have it that way as well. And you got to get that voice.
Yeah, and you got to get, and because think about it, with my gray hair and everything else, I'm quite sure you know that I'm old. But the thing is that with a high school student and everything else, their perspective of technology is completely different from mine.
Yes.
I didn't grow up with it,
Yeah.
but their perspective is that this is life. This is a part of them. This is what they need and everything. Not need, but it's a part of who they are.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into the whole thing about screen time, but anyhow, we won't go into that.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and this story, because I know it was, I remember talking to you in the heat when that was happening, and I was all ears because I was like, oh my gosh, this is a very real thing. And it was, for me, it felt like it was close to home knowing you and for so long and what have you. I was like, oh, wow, I want to learn from this. I want to know more about this. And now our listeners can know more about what it's like to go through that, and that there is the other side of it. You're living now on the other side of that. You've survived it. You're a survivor of this. Your district is a survivor of this, and life does go on, and school business still continues.
Correct.
Which is the best news in the world, right?
One thing I would say also, Phil, is make sure you share your story. If you're going through this, share your story, because the thing about it is that every incident tends to be different.
Yes.
And because every incident is different, what happens, how I might have, the intrusion happened on my school district is going to be different compared to how it's going to happen at your school district, Phil, or your school district, Andy.
Yeah.
And because of that, having all of those different ways of really looking at your infrastructure gives you an option to say, okay, now I know that this is something that can happen. All right. Maybe what I need to do is up the ante on my patching, or maybe what I need to do is to go in and start checking what is expired and what's not. What do I need to pull up my network? How many people who have retired from your school district is still in your AD?
Yeah.
Things like that you need to really consider.
Yeah, no doubt. So as our listeners know, we always like to have a parting tip that can help our folks. Sandra, I put you on the spot. Do you have a parting tip or tool that you would like to share with our listeners that has helped you through your career as a CTO?
One of the things I would like to, talking about some of the new tools, my two favorite tools right now actually is Canva, because I like to use Canva a lot for presentations and for different things, because I like how it breaks down things, especially when you're presenting before a school board, you know what I mean? Or you're presenting in front of parents. And so that really worked out really well. That's one thing. The other thing that also helps, so I've always used GTP, sorry, right?
Yeah.
And because and I'm not talking about just writing something. I'm talking about, I'm not a very prolific writer. So because of that, I tend to, one of my master's instructors told me, he says, you tend to write very technical. I use a lot of bullet points. I use short statements, everything like that. So for me to put something in a paragraph is pretty difficult, just to let you know. So because of that, I used to use GPT to do that. But right now I've been using Notebook LM.
Okay.
And I find that with Notebook LM, a lot of those things it knows me better, a little bit better than ChatGPT. And because of that, I find that it helps me to be able to put a lot of my ideas together. I still think in bullet points and short statements and stuff like that. But those are my two favorite tools that I like to use right now. But over the years, I've always been a big time, huge Google fan. I love anything from, I've used so much tools with the Google Suite.
Like Google has expanded the Notebook LM. Every day I'm seeing a new feature that they've expanded. Even their podcast feature now has the interactive part where, just like the podcast we're doing right now,
exactly,
you could interact with us. If this was done in Notebook LM, you could interact and ask us questions just like a radio show, a radio caller calling in type of thing. It's pretty wild that they can do that now.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Sure.
I appreciate seeing you again.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
Look forward to seeing you in person again.
Oh, yes.
Coming up with the different conference seasons that we have. And just thank you for sharing your story and who you are, the advocate you are for students and for women in the industry as well. I think that's really important. You're a role model for especially the younger women that are thinking about this as a career for themselves. I know you've done that through the early CTO Academy that COSIN puts on. I know you're a mentor for that, and that's been very valuable to a lot of folks, I know. So thank you for all you do and all you've done for our business. We really appreciate your time, Sandra. And thank you for helping make all of our districts a zero
breach
zone.
Oh,
There it is.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Zero Breach Zone podcast. We hope our conversation left you feeling more informed and empowered to protect our K-12 schools from cyber threats.
A big shout out to our sponsor, CyberNut, for making this podcast possible. CyberNut is committed to providing security awareness training designed for schools, helping educators and students navigate the digital world with confidence.
If you want to learn more about how CyberNut can help strengthen your school's cybersecurity defenses, head over to their website, cybernut.com, and sign up for their training program. Together, we can create a safer online environment for everyone in our educational communities.
And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Connect with us on LinkedIn to join the conversation and help us build a strong community around cybersecurity and education.
Join us next time on the Zero Breach Zone for more insightful conversations. Stay vigilant, stay ahead, and let's keep our schools a
Zero
breach
zone.